Hello everyone, this is L5 and welcome to the Cobra BUGG Secto toy review. And today so we'll be looking at the 1988 release by Hasbro of the G.I. Joe vehicle and action figure review. And today's vehicle and action figure review, we'll be looking at the Cobra BUGG. There's no acronym for it, it just spells as B-U-G-G, BUGG. And its driver, the Secto-Viper. Now I got this straight from eBay, and believe it or not, this whole entire set here, not counting the box or the instruction manual, is just the vehicle, the figure and the file card for $50. That's not counting the shipping either. So it's such a good deal to actually get this entire vehicle along with the figure and the file card in complete form. Because in eBay, a lot of people are selling just the vehicle alone at least $70 or $80 there, maybe up until $90 depending on what parts are still on. And furthermore, the figure alone is being sold at least $20 to $30. And again, depending on whether if it's complete or not. Without a dome, the dome head there, it will cost at least, well, less than $20. With the dome and the pistol and the file card, it will cost at least $15. So I'm quite glad that I actually gotten the whole entire set for just $50 there. So without further ado, let's start our review on the Secto-Viper first. Be right back. And we're back, and this time we'll take a look at the Secto-Viper. But first things first, let's take a look at the file card. Now you can actually find the file card at the back portion of the Cobra BUGG's packaging itself. All you have to do is just cut out the indicated cutout line at the edges of the file card. Now this is, well, it belongs to the previous owner, so the cutout line is not visible. Plus the fact that it's not really well cut out, but still you can actually read most of the stuff on the file card itself. Now let's take a look at the top section here. Code name Secto-Viper Cobra BUGG driver. Here you got a nice little artwork of the Secto-Viper himself. The same artwork that you find on the Cobra BUGG's main packaging box. Now here in the write-up, form as a dedicated unit to patrol the shorelines of Cobra Island. Secto-Vipers are unique specialists in amphibious operations and marine surveillance. Every Secto-Viper is assigned a specific sector of shoreline and is required to know every square inch of it, as well as the topology of the ocean floor that abuts it. They are thoroughly familiar with every amphibious landing craft currently in use by the armed forces of the world, and can recite by rote their quote-and-unquote soft points and areas of vulnerability. Very interesting. Now at the bottom section of the file card itself, probably one of the Cobra personnel, maybe one of the Vipers, stating, Secto-Vipers are too conscientious. They are always speeding over the dunes or creeping about under the surf. Off-duty Cobra personnel can't spread a towel on the beach to catch some rays without being reduced by a overzealous Secto-Viper looking to make brownie points with his superiors. Not the greatest thing in the world for morale. Quite interesting. And at the back portion of the file card itself is part of the card box. Now let's take a look at the figure's accessories. The figure doesn't come with a base stand, but it does come with two accessories. One of them is a small little, I would assume some sort of a ray gun there, or a laser gun. Quite interesting to note is that, first of all, the entire gun here is made of a black plastic material color with no paint job. Second, the mold here is totally unique to the Secto-Viper. Very nicely done. When it first released in the 1988, this is a unique mold for the Secto-Viper. Here you got the handle, another handle there, I'm not too sure why. You got the barrel of the gun, you got the fin on the top, very nicely designed. It looks very futuristic, very nice. However, the problem with this, well, handgun here is that the handle is a bit too thick. It can still fit onto the figure's, well, in between the figure's hands, the fingers itself, but the problem is it's a bit too thick, so you have to, well, use a bit of force to push it in, which is not a really good thing considering that the whole entire figure is made of a, well, hard plastic, and the thumb there is always the first place to bring if you use too much force. So you have to be extra careful arming the Secto-Viper with the smaller pistol there. Then we have, well, a dome here made of a clear translucent plastic. This is part of the Secto-Viper's accessory, part of his body actually, that you have to connect it on top of his head. Now what's interesting to note is that, well, this is also a unique accessory only to Secto-Viper. Very nice, very simple. Let's take a look at the figure's paint job. Now, as you can see, majority of the parts as you see on the figures itself, it's not painted at all, made entirely of, well, majority of the parts are made with plastic material color. The torso, waist, legs are actually made of a yellow plastic material color. The head and arms are made of a black plastic material color. Now, let's take a look at the head itself. The entire head here, majority of the parts are made of a black plastic material color, but the flesh tone there, as you can see, the flesh is painted with flesh tone colors. However, the eyebrows and the eyes are actually painted in light brown, so it looks quite a bit weird, but still very nicely done with the paint job. Torso here is made of a yellow plastic material color, but the chest area here, as you can see, all the wirings are made, well, is painted in red. The waist here also made of a yellow plastic material color, but only at the crotch area painted in black. Arms are entirely made of a black plastic material color. The gloves, however, is painted in yellow, as you can see here. Upper bicep here has a small little Cobra logo. Thighs are not painted at all, and lower legs here, the boots are actually painted in black for the, well, cloth itself. And this section of the boots, at the front section of the boots, are also painted in black as a straight line. And that's all there is for the paint job for this figure. Now, the colors is actually not bad. It's actually alright, despite that it's bright yellow. Let's take a look at the figure's mold here. Now, when it was first released in 1988, the Secto-Viper's mold is all totally unique mold for him. No other figures actually carry the same mold, and no other figures actually use, well, any of the body parts for the Secto-Viper's body parts for future figures as well. Yes, Secto-Viper here is utterly so unique that no one, well, uses the reused parts on this figure's body, which is quite interesting to note that even when on its creation, none of the body parts are actually, well, were reused when it was first released in 1988. And he's the only figure that comes along with this kind of a shape of a, well, chest itself. As you can see, this is one whole piece of the figure's torso that connects to the dome itself, which is very interesting. Now, for the head mold itself is quite nicely done. Half his face is exposed. Bottom section of the face, his mouth has been covered with a breathing mask with two tubes running from each side of the face. Very nice. The back portion is all quite smooth. The neck area, half his face has been covered by this piece here. As you can see, this is to connect the dome itself. But the front portion of the chest, there's a lot of wiring connected to this section here all the way down to his abs there. And you get to see a little bit of design on the middle section of the chest with a lot of rivets. Back portion of the figure, there's a bit of wrinkles there, paddings. Each side of the arm is the same design, all wrinkly cloth there. But the gloves is quite interesting to note because they have rings all over the gloves itself. For the waist area here, it's quite simplistic in design. In the crotch area here, there's a lot of buttons or rivets found on this section here. But for the back portion of the figure, here the lining starts from here all the way down from the thigh section here, or starting from here, that goes all the way from here to here. Very nice design. And the knee section there, similar like the gloves itself, there's a lot of rings there. And just below the knee, the cloth can be found on the lower section of the legs itself, and the shin area here, with a lot of heavy clothing here, a lot of wrinkles, and you got the boots. Very nice, very unique design of the figure itself. That's fully equipped, the figure. But first things first, let's take a look at the figure's articulation. Now what's interesting to note is that the figure's head here, despite that we have the dome, it can still turn left and right, tilt the head back, straight. But with the dome, you cannot, well, move the head joint itself unless you remove the dome to twist it yourself, like so. Torso here is made of an O-ring that connects from the torso to the waist, so you can only turn left and right, back, front a little bit, side to side, but you cannot turn 360 degrees, otherwise you'll snap the O-ring. Shoulder joints here can turn 360 degrees and lift the arms this high. Elbow joints here can bend this far and turn 360 degrees, and no wrist joint. Hip joints here can move forward, straight, to the side a little bit, and single joint knee that bends this far. Now let's fully equip him with all the accessories, starting with the dome. And for the gun itself, which you have to be a little bit gentle when trying to place the handle onto the in between the fingers itself. Very nice. Overall, I really like the Secto-Viper. It's one of the few iconic characters for the G.I. Joe line itself, because the Secto-Vipers do appear a lot of times during the late 80s period of the Marvel's G.I. Joe comics. Then later on it really slowly disappeared from the Marvel comics, of the G.I. Joe Marvel comics. So it's quite disappointing, but it did appear quite a number of times in the comics. It's quite nicely done, and I really like the figure, especially on the design on the figure itself, for underwater Viper. They look more like research scientists rather than more combat personnel there, especially when they're having the dome on their head. So if I'm going to give a rating out of this figure, the problem with this figure is that you cannot troop build this guy, because it's quite difficult to troop build him when they are very rare. They are quite rare to find complete in eBay, and when you do find a complete Secto-Viper, they cost a bomb. But back then, that's how it is. If you want more Secto-Viper, you need to get another Cobra BUGG, which is, well, you end up having two Cobra BUGG vehicles, and then you have another one more Secto-Viper figure, because the Cobra BUGG, it doesn't look, well, natural to have only one Secto-Viper manning the Cobra BUGG. You at least need 2, maybe 3 or 4 of them, because, well, they are the drivers for the Cobra BUGG. It's just like the Cobra Maggot with the Cobra Worms. You need more than one of their figure to man the vehicle, because that's their vehicle, that's their specialty. The problem is that because of Secto-Viper being so rare and expensive nowadays to purchase a complete Secto-Viper in eBay, that's the downfall for it. The good point is the figure is really nice. So if I'm going to give a rating out of this, I'll give it a nice 9. A 9 out of 10 for the Secto-Viper. Next up, let's take a look at the Cobra BUGG. Be right back. And we're back, and this time we'll take a look at the Cobra BUGG. Now, first things first, let's take a look at the colors being applied onto the vehicle itself. Now, bear in mind, this is a 1988 release by Hasbro of a G.I. Joe vehicle toy, and there is absolutely no paint job involved for this entire vehicle. Everything you see here is purely plastic material color. Now, I also have to apologize that this vehicle is also lacking sticker labels, because when I bought this from the eBay seller, he has to remove all the previous sticker labels to clean the entire vehicle. So it's a really pity that there's no sticker labels, especially when there's no reproduction sticker labels for me to replace the missing stickers. You make do what you can have. Now let's take a look at the colors. Now the body of the vehicle itself is made of a dark green plastic material color, so does the mini sub here. Now the hatches on each side of the vehicle, even the platform here, the back door for the decompression chamber, and the side door for this section here is made of a neon lime green plastic material color. The missiles, the Trident missiles, the torpedoes, the wheels, even the gun turrets at the bottom section of the vehicle itself, including the small little sleds, missiles or torpedoes, all the seat belts inside the seating itself, and also at the bottom section of the vehicle itself, as you can see, this section here is also made of a black plastic material color. Each of the covers for the engine itself is also made of a black plastic material color. Very nice. And the rest of the parts are made of dark red. The cone for the torpedo, the back portion of the torpedo as well, the cannons on each side of the vehicle, including the back one, the seatings, machine gun turrets, the fins, including this section as well, the sled, and let's not forget this back portion here. This entire section is made of a dark red plastic material color. Very nice. Including the seatings on this section as well. And the remaining parts will be the covers or the hatches are made of a clear translucent plastic, including the turret on the top there. Very nice. Now let's do a size comparison with the Secto-Viper with the Cobra BUGG. Now this vehicle is really huge, and here we have the Secto-Viper figure standing next to the Cobra BUGG vehicle. As you can see, it's really a huge vehicle. Let's do a side comparison. As you can see there, a rather huge vehicle, really worth to buy despite the bright neon lime green colors. I really don't like the bright neon colors there. It is, well, the vehicle is an underwater amphibious vehicle, and you have bright neon green colors or bright neon yellow colors. It looks pretty weird, but still I can still live with that, especially when the majority of the colors itself is dark green, so it's still alright. And the vehicle is extremely huge. Now first things first, let's take a look at the accessories before we go to the details. Now it has this missiles, which is called the Trident missiles because, you know, look at the head of the missile itself. It is shaped like a trident. You got two side fins here at the body of the missile, and the end of the missile itself also 3 fins there, and you can plug it at the peg, as you can see here. There's 1 Trident missile here, 2 for this section of the door, and 1 more on the other side here. There are 2 torpedoes, 2 large torpedoes, as you can see here, including this section as well. Very nice. Furthermore, we have 2 sleds. There's another sled on the other side. Each one of the sled here comes with smaller missiles or torpedoes, as you can see there. And also, as you can see, this sled here, you can lift up this entire piece here and place a figure on top of this platform. There's a peg for the foot itself. You can place the figure right on top of this and have the figure hold onto the handle. Now what's interesting to note is that it's quite awkward for the figure to hold onto it, because when you lift this up, the handles is a bit in an angle. So let's place in the Secto-Viper on top of the sled itself. Plug it onto the peg and have the figure hold onto it like so. Again, the peg is a bit too large for the figure to hold onto. As you can see, it's really hard for the figure to hold onto because the peg itself for the handle is a bit too but you get my meaning here. I don't want to stress the plastic on the thumb itself, but the figure can hold on to it. Despite that, it's a bit awkward, as you can see there. Let's remove the figure on one side. You get to see the details of the engine for the sled. Very nice. Nice details there for even a smaller sled. Underneath it, there's nothing special, but there's a big old peg there. It doesn't peg in anywhere in the storage compartment, which is kind of interesting. But what's more interesting to note is that you can actually place an eel underneath there as well. Bad example to put in the Secto-Viper, but you get my point. You can actually plug in at the back of an eel, and you have another eel riding on top of it. So it's quite interesting. For a smaller sled, you can actually store like 2 figures there. Now, what's a little bit disappointing is that the storage compartment, there's not enough room to place in a figure inside. There's enough room to place a sled. You get to see there's more storage area, but they didn't make it deep enough. I really wish they actually make it deep enough so you can actually place another figure inside. So imagine that the Cobra BUGG is, well, running through the dunes of the undersea water, and this hatch opens up, and immediately we already have a eel piloting the sled and immediately launch out from the storage compartment, rather than having the eel sitting on this section here and then have to climb in just to, well, man this smaller sled. So it's a little bit disappointing because the room is not big enough, but it's still a very nice function there. Now we have the 2 sleds covered and the missiles plus the 2 torpedoes. Now let's take a close look on the details for the vehicle. Now from the front section here, very nicely done. On the bottom section here, as you can see, there's 2 turrets. The turrets can turn 360 degrees, of course, and the guns can go all the way to the back or all the way to the top this far. So that's on the other side, and turn 360 degrees as well. There's also headlights for the vehicle. Very nice. This hatch here can slide all the way to the back, and you can store 2 figures inside. There's 2 seat belts there. Very nicely done with the details. You can pull off the seat belt, as you can see now, and slide it into the smaller peg hole, or the smaller slot. Get to see each side of the armrest. There's buttons, there are read-up dials there. Very nicely done with the smaller details. Here, this entire piece here is actually removable, like so. So you can actually place the figure inside quite easily. And again, inside the seating, we have the seat and the seat belt, the armrest there. We have all the controls. Very nice details. Now opening this side here. Now what's the biggest problem with this side door? First I have to plug this back in properly because it's not closed in properly enough. There you go. Now what's the main problem with this side door is that because of this huge peg on the top here, so when you're trying to open it, it doesn't seem to slide out quite easily, so you have to be extra careful when opening this. You also tend to stress the plastic on this and this section as well. Here we have another seating for another figure, a seat belt as well, more control panels on the side of the armrest itself. You've got a smaller platform for the figure to climb in. Now what's interesting to note is that there's no smaller ladder for the figure to climb in, because it's quite a, well, height there for the figure to have to climb in quite painfully just to get into the seating itself. The side door here, we have the tubes, a bit of details there. Here we have the a little bit more details. The door for the sled itself, very nice. Each side of the vehicle we have the engines itself. You got the engine details here, the fan here, and more details at the back portion, the exhaust. You get to see there are two handles. There's a small little, I would assume some sort of a readout. You can place a figure there, or eel. I know it's a bad example to put in a Secto-Viper because he's not supposed to go there, but you can place a figure on top like so. Very nice. You get to see all the armor platings there, and rivets for each of the armor plating. Very nicely done. Underneath the vehicle itself, as you can see, there's the 6 wheels, large wheels there, and also a bit more details underneath the vehicle itself. Very nice. Now what's interesting to note is that the Cobra BUGG has a very awkward design. First off, the wheels are from this section to this section here, and there is no wheels in the front section here, so it looks quite awkward, especially when your turrets are just touching the ground itself. It is touching a little bit, so it's not advisable for you to play it. You want to play this vehicle on a rough terrain, otherwise you'll scratch the turret underneath here. Now the mini sub here has smaller fins, but first we have to remove the entire mini sub. Now the main problem with the mini sub is that it's connected with this clip here. As you can see, this clip is the major problem for most Cobra BUGG owners, because if you not careful with it and you're being rough with it, this clip will break very easily. This is the clip that holds the sub itself. Now we have the clip, it still can stay on, but it's gonna be a bit loose now. So to those buyers who want to buy a Cobra BUGG, make sure this clip is still there. So the most safest way to pull the mini sub is to slightly pull the clip up a little bit and pull out the mini sub. Like so, and this piece just fell. Let me put this back in first. And you can see this is how it looks like once the mini sub is out. This is the clip that holds on to the, well, the mini sub. You got 2 more clips, as you can see here. This part is not as fragile compared to this part, because every time you have to pull the mini sub, you have to pull this piece up in order to pull out the mini sub. So my advice, use a little bit of strength, just pull it a tiny little bit and slowly pull out the mini sub at the same time. This is how it looks like. We have the mini sub here, we have the mini sub here, back portion here we have the fans, you got the fins. Again, this is the part which is quite fragile for most BUGG collectors, because of the tiny little pegs here that connect to the fins itself. As you can see here, yes, it does move, as you can see there. Again, when you want to buy a Cobra BUGG, make sure this piece and the fins, especially the pegs, are still in one piece, because they are quite delicate pieces here. So yes, we have a mini sub for 2 person to ride onto. As you can see underneath the vehicle, there's a bit more details as well. There's a lot of nice details for the vehicle. Now in order to plug back in, do the same thing. Pull up a little bit. First I have to move this one side so I can see where am I plugging in. Pull this up a little bit, and there you go. It's back onto its original position. Now on top of the vehicle we have the cannons, as you can see, and the cannons also have details as well. This section here is dual barrel. It's on a swivel hinge joint, so you can actually turn the entire cannon here 360 degrees point down all the way down this far or all the way up. Same goes on the other side. This one is a bit different because it's on a dome turret, so you can turn the entire turret 360 degrees and lift this entire piece all the way up this high, which is very, very good for, well, anti-aircraft, well, turret there. The back portion of the vehicle, we have the decompression chamber. This is the hatch itself. There's a lot of nice details in the back as well. So by moving this one side, you can pull this all the way up and you get to see this is where you place more figures. It's quite difficult to hold this entire vehicle. You can place one figure here to man the controls for the turret, and this is a decompression chamber. There's a couple of smaller pegs here for 2 more figures to stand inside or sit inside. You can see that got a smaller step that goes all the way up. Now they do build steps for this section for the figure to, you know, climb all the way up and then man the, well, turret, but they don't even bother to place in ladders for this section or the back. Go figure. Now on the back portion here, we have also a hookup. Very nice. Got the wheels going on, and yes, it does roll, and you can hear it's quite heavy and quite loud because this vehicle is quite heavy actually. Very nice. Now you must be wondering, how many figures can it actually store? Well, you can store 2 figures on this mini sub, 2 more figures on this section here as well, 1 figure to lay onto this section, not counting the sled. If you count the sled, you can actually put in 2 more figures, 1 more figure underneath the sled as well. So 2, 4, 6 for each side of the engine, plus at the back portion here 3 more figures. Total of 9 figures. 10 if you want to cram in another one. Very nice. So basically this entire vehicle is quite fun because not only is a vehicle, it's also a play set because you have decompression chamber at the back. You can place in more figures inside. You have the figure manning the turret. You have another figure or 2 well, just basically laying on top of this section here. You can place in, well, a figure or 2 to man the sleds. You have a small little mini sub that can detach out from the main body for, well, reconnaissance or surveillance. You can put in 2 more figures inside this section here. There's a lot of playability for the Cobra BUGG, and when I first got this vehicle, I have lots of hours of fun with the Cobra BUGG. It's quite nice. I also forgot to mention there's a bit of details on this section here as well. So let's place in a Secto-Viper into the mini subsection here. Pull out the belt itself. Now it's a bit tricky to place in the figure because the room itself is a bit tight, especially when you want to place in the belt for the seatings itself. It's a bit too tricky sometimes, but there you go. Very nice. We have a Secto-Viper sitting inside the mini sub comfortably. That's the sad part because you can only have 1 Secto-Viper for a Cobra BUGG. If you want to get more, you have to get them loose, and they're usually quite expensive if you want them to be complete. That's the sad part. Just like the Cobra Maggot with the Cobra Worms, you cannot have more than 1 to 2 built to have them man the vehicles that they are specialized in. That's the sad part of it. This vehicle is absolutely gorgeous. And if you're asking, does it float? No, it does not float. I tried before by placing it on top of a water, on a bathtub, filled with water of course. And like a submarine, it slowly, yes, very slowly, it sinks down. It doesn't float at all, despite whatever pictures that you see in the internet where people have, well, they place in their Cobra BUGG on a swimming pool and you think they are floating, it doesn't float because there's a lot of seams underneath the vehicle itself. There's a lot of seams, the water just rush in and it will slowly sink down. So I suggest, well, you can still play with it with water, it just won't float. Another question that comes into your mind is that will it fit 25th to 30th anniversary figures? Yes, it will. So from that on, I'm going to place in all the 25th to 30th anniversary figures into the Cobra BUGG. So be right back. And we're back, and this time the Cobra BUGG has been outfitted with all of the 25th anniversary G.I. Joes and the Rise of Cobra G.I. Joes as well. As you can see here, the mini sub has been piloted by the 2 lamb-free figures from the 25th anniversary line, including the Rise of Cobra Aqua Viper, and also another lamb-free on this second seating inside, an eel on top of the engines itself, another one on the other side. In the turret itself, we have a lamb-free manning the gun itself. As you can see here, we have 2 of the Rise of Cobra eels sitting inside the decompression chamber. Very nice. So yes, if you can find a Cobra BUGG, especially a very still in one condition, a good condition Cobra BUGG, I suggest that you get it, but as long as you don't pay a huge amount of price for it, like $90 to $100, yeah, that's decently priced, maybe $50 or $60. You may have a chance to get a Cobra BUGG that costs around that, or even more cheaper. Who knows, maybe you're lucky enough to find even more cheaper version of a Cobra BUGG being sold. This vehicle is really worth the price to fit in your 25th anniversary figures to your 30th anniversary figures. Who knows, maybe the Retaliation figures as well, because this is a very worthy vehicle, a worthy Cobra vehicle, which is an amphibious submarine tank. And due to the size of it, the size is really awesome, really huge. Though the colors is a little bit off due to the bright neon colors, but still able to hold in a lot of figures is a good thing. It's a very nice touch. So if I'm gonna give a rating out of this, I would say, because of the problems of the Cobra BUGG, especially the really weak parts here, like the clips here, that tends to snap off quite easily if you're not too careful, or the fins itself, and furthermore the really off bright neon green colors there, plus the fact that it's quite difficult to find this in one good shape. And also, if you're a completist and you wanted to have the Secto-Viper, is also another problem as well. So if I'm going to give a rating on this, I'm still going to go and give this vehicle a nice 9 out of 10. Yes, 9 out of 10 for the Cobra BUGG because of its playability. A lot of functions, a lot of nice gimmicks there, a lot of figures that you can store into the vehicle. So 9 out of 10 for the Cobra BUGG. I thank you all for watching. This is Lucy05 and I'm signing off.